Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is Christine Arilo, your host, and I welcome you here to this place where we come together to reimagine the way we in the world work from the inside out by bringing together leadership, well-being, and wisdom. Everyone take a breath as we land here into episode number 276, which I've titled Setting Ourselves Up for the Cycle Ahead. For those of you who have been around and connected here at Feminine Power Time for a while, you'll remember that often at the beginning of a year cycle, not a calendar year cycle, but kind of more of the marriage blending between the linear year and the lunar year, I usually drop in with a podcast. Often it's been in the past called Wisdom for the Year Ahead. And so while the intention is going to be the same this year, kind of we're just shifting a little bit because the name, as I said, is setting ourselves up for the cycle ahead. And two things before we kind of get in, I want to give you some orientation here. An orientation is going to be a very important word and practice for this cycle ahead. And the cycle that we're taping this live in is the beginning of the cycle of the year 2026. Yes, the linear calendar started on January 1st, but we all know that that is a man-made, human-made day, and it has value, but not a lot of significance. And this year in 2026, the first new moon was on January 18th, the day before MLK Day, which for me is always the beginning of a portal into our power to co-create, our power to be the dreamers, our power to say that I have a dream and it to be grounded in spirit, in body, in matter, and heart, and to know that the long game, if we play it, will prevail. And the power of love will overcome the love of power. And in fact, on MLK Day this year, I watched the I Have a Dream full speech, and I also watched him receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. And if you haven't seen those videos, I highly encourage you to check those out. Help you bring some sanity to the current reality that we're living in. And that is actually one of my practices, my orientation practices, is to do what I call sanity scanning. And it's different than doom scrolling. For any of you who doom scroll out there, you can replace that habit, we're even getting started here with a new practice of sanity scanning, where you look for evidence of elevation and you look for evidence of sanity and of what true leadership looks like, and also for me, what good humans and humanity actually looks like. So we don't forget and we don't allow the images that are flooding the field right now to become the new normal. So sanity scanning is simply where you kind of can go in through a portal. Like I went in and said, okay, MLK speech, and for I Have a Dream, and I watched that, and then on the YouTube Oracle popped his Nobel Peace Prize one, and it was just great to watch both of those together. Or the other day, sometimes I go in through Jimmy Kimmel, and he talks about something, and then that led me to the World Economic Forum and hearing the speech from the Prime Minister of Canada, which was like, oh my God, thank you. There's somebody, there's sanity and leadership. And if you haven't seen that, I also recommend that. We also posted that up on the Feminine Wisdom Cafe, which for those of you that are new here and you're not connected to that, it's a free online private cafe community that I started in 2020 to be a place to come and connect with sanity as we go through these times, and wisdom. And so there's a part on that space called Harmonic Defiance, where we post people embodying harmonic defiance. And so that is also on there, and you can go there, Feminine Wisdom Cafe, and that is accessible and free to anyone who wants to be able to connect into inspiring things without being bombarded by ads. So, orientation. If you have a piece of paper, I encourage you to grab one. And if not, your notes, or come back and listen to this later. But orientation is one of those things as we head into this next year cycle, and this year, the 2026, And also remember, the Lunar New Year doesn't start until February this year, February 17th. So there are these kind of markers as we go into the year of the first new moon, the beginning of the Lunar New Year, and then equinox used to be, the vernal equinox is really the start. So we're cycling up, we're rising up into that spring vernal equinox in the north, fall in the south, but that middle of March. And so it gives us runway to rise up. And why this is important and why I'm spending this time beforehand talking about this piece of orientation and disorientation is that, or dislocation, is that working with the natural cycles of the lunar cycles and the seasonal cycles is part of what keeps us sane and sustained and focused and centered and literally calm. It's a practice that reduces anxiety because we're connected to something that's real. Y'all, like the moon is a real thing. The cycles on this planet, whether humans were here or not, would continue. And so when we align our biorhythm to the biorhythm of the natural cycles, A, it makes us a heck of a lot wiser, but B, it settles down our nervous system. And what in traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, there's lots of different names for the channels and energies and subtle realms that we have that the Western world doesn't acknowledge yet because you can't always see these through Western science, although the Heart Math Institute, for those of you that are familiar with that, has been studying heart coherency for decades. And if you don't know about Heart Math Institute, I would encourage you to check them out too. It's good for us to be connected with other organizations that are and have been focused on creating a brighter world in which all people, all planet, all life can truly prosper. And that's a possibility and a reality that we can bring in ourselves. And so we start today and kind of how we're going to frame this. I'm going to share a model with you all that I have, that I downloaded in like 2018, believe it or not. That was, going on 8 years ago. But back then it was like things were getting crazier and amping up. And so I've talked about it multiple times, but it's actually going to frame our conversation today, which is the triangle of sacred transformation. And as we kind of drop in here before I kind of share that model, and then the model has 3 points, and we'll use it for you today. The intention is that when the world speeds up, so wisdom bite here, when the world speeds up, the wise ones slow down. When the world speeds up, the wise ones slow down. When the world speeds up, the wise ones slow down. So just let yourself, your body, your being, even your brain, but how about your entire nervous system to start to downshift and slow down simply by attuning to your breath and feeling that breath move through your being from your belly to your heart, to breathing up and through your mind and through your spirit, also known as your Shen body, sometimes called your magnetic field. And just allowing yourself to be here now. Nowhere to go, nothing to figure out, that this space and time between you and I, and really the field of people who are tuning in, because as I've often said, while we use the podcast platform for Feminine Power Time, this is not about more information. This is about supporting you in your illumination liberation and elevation so that you can be a centered, calm, clear presence in the systems, from individual relationships to your own internal system and your purpose and your part, to the systems that you work in your teams and communities and organizations. So when I say the wise ones slow down, that doesn't mean that we just are going to have no action. It's actually a practice. I'm going to encourage you. So here's practice number 2. When you feel yourself in the coming year speed up, or get sped up, or get swirled up, I encourage you and can invite you to hear my voice or the voice of your own inner wisdom that says, take a breath, take a beat, tune in to what you need. It's going to happen. And we're going to talk about that today, of the things that we can expect and the 3 levels at which things are moving so that you can really stay centered, sustained, and clear. So let's start with the energy for this year. And then we'll kind of go from there. And then I'll share with you the model. Okay. So, and again, if you're listening to this at any time, it's all good, because even though it might be September or April, or you come back to this, or probably even another year, the wisdom that I'm going to bring us through and process will be relevant. But I am going to talk about the energy of this year for 2026. And I'll just, say to everybody, I've been thinking about y'all. I have been on maybe I'll talk about this when I get to release and heal the past. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Okay. So, we have one of the ways that one of the center points of Feminine Power Time is we're imagining what the world would look like when the feminine leads and the masculine supports. Now, that doesn't mean that that's men and women. That means the energy of yin and yang, of fierce grace, of feminine, masculine. And so that's the slowing down part. That's the tuning in part. That's the invisible part, is the feminine. And so we're going to tune in here to the energy, because just think about this practically. If you were about to go off on an adventure, which 2026 is going to continue to be, you would stop and pause before you just got on, in this case, the fire horse. So every year you can look at, this is in Chinese, it's a Chinese astrology, so it's tied to the lunar new year, and this year is the year of the fire horse. So there's, a number of different animals, and plus there's 5 elements. So you can have a metal horse, an earth horse, a water horse. This year is a fire horse. We're still in for the next couple of weeks what's called the wood snake. That's where we've been. So it's been about shedding skins. And what's interesting about this and the shedding of the skin is that the last piece that the snake loses is its tail. So we're still losing our tail. And what that means is, think about that both collectively and personally, because this is part of what we're going to be exploring today, is that there is a meta transformation going on right now. There is a collective transformation going on right now for humanity, every human on the planet. And it's been happening for thousands of years. We've been evolving, but the kind of holy crap, this is getting hot in here. I mean, you would bring that all the way back to the 60s, in which they called it the age of the dawning of Aquarius, and where MLK started. And we're now 60? How long? I can't count right now. 60 years into that, and some wisdom traditions say the turning of an age is 100 years. And so this is also part of how we stay oriented, is coming back to the longer cycles of time while we're also staying present in the now time. So we're only a little over half through. And for those of you that have been around, you'll know this because I've talked about this for a decade. For those of you that don't, go back and listen to some of the podcasts earlier this year. where when we tune into evolution and evolving and systemic change, there's always a part where the old doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to let go. It fears death. And this is true at the macro level, we're seeing it, but everything, well, not everything, but many of the things that we're seeing at the macro level is also happening at a micro level. And it's important to understand that, lest you forget, like, oh, this is just happening to me. No, you are not alone in whatever way your skin is being shed, whatever way that tail is the root, and think of the root like the root of your spine. Think of the root like your self-love, your internal self-love tree. It's worth, it's acceptance, it's our safety, it's our security, that root energy part that needs to feel safe. It's where, in the instincts, like through the Enneagram lens, it's where our self-preservation is at. And so that's like getting ripped off right now, and we're feeling it, right? And so if we don't root ourselves deeply into the soil like a tree and have that strong trunk, belly, heart, mind, spirit, body, as the winds come through, as they will in this fire horse year, you can bet your bottom dollar, as Annie would say, your shit's gonna break. Like, it's like the tree will break, it won't bend. And so part of us pausing here is about what I call, this kind of came to me in my meditation this morning before coming with you all, this is a little bit of a mantra. So you can also write this down or just listen and take what feels right to you. So as we go into this next cycle, we need to go in eyes wide open, ears attuned, and our bodies rooted into the earth, into ourselves, and into spirit. So we are dialed into what is real, what is resonant, and what keeps us rooted. Eyes wide open, ears attuned, body grounded, rooted. We do this through our breath and many other things. Because if we don't keep those eyes open and those ears attuned, it's too easy to get bewildered, a word that just came through in my emerge process. Bewildered and overwhelmed and overloaded and lose our center. And so one of the ways we do that is what we're doing. Okay, it's going to be a fire horse year. I'm still shedding my roots, my snake tail here. And if fire horse, someone said to me, they're like, well, what does that mean? Like, I need to get on the fire horse. We have to get ready for getting on the fire horse. I was like, oh, honey, no getting on the fire horse. No one ride the fire horse. One way that we work with energy when we know what's coming is you balance the elements with elements that balance that out. So with fire, get on your water horse. Get on your earth horse, right? Water quells fire, earth quells fire. Water transforms fire into steam, and earth settles it. So adding fire to fire this year, no bueno. More fire, that's all it creates. More outrage, more irritation, more inflammation. Adding wind to fire, also not very helpful, because wind with fire just makes the fire get bigger. So you can think about that at the meta for how, I call it the 47th entity that is currently running amok, not just in America, but around the globe I also call them the BBs, the billionaire boys, that don't seem to think that they have accountability to anything other than their own needs and wants. And that's more than we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk some about that today. But it's an outpicturing of the things that in our society and on this planet do not work and haven't worked for a long time. So the root of these just like harmful, destructive, forces that have just been allowed to fester and grow. And who knows if we could have done better than we've done to get us here. But I think most of us, a lot of us know you can't, that's not going to get us to where we need to go. So the root of these like deeper fears and this deeper victimization and this piece of disempowerment has been happening on the planet for a long time. And it is time to shake that tail off. And we are moving and turning because we are also, this is the year of the wheel of fortune. So in the Tarot, the other thing that you can do is you can take the year, like 2026, add it up, and it will add up to one of the 20 major archetypes in the Tarot, also known as the Arcana. And it will give us some perspective about how to be, all right? So we have a fire horse, and there's some great things about fire horse. Like I'll say, it's like, this is not the year to be like, I'm just gonna pull the wool over my head and just not look. Like whatever is calling you in your work, in your well-being, in your own growth, this is the year to engage. And you've likely been leaving up, I hope, for the last couple years. Like for me, there's things I've been sitting with and working with for 3 years that are finally now ready to actually come out into the public in a way that they just haven't been ready. They've been gestating for somewhere between 3 and 7 years, and I can feel they're ready to come out. And for some of us, that energy, like depending on whether fire is more your natural element or water is kind of more your natural element, you might need the opposite. Like my partner Noah, he's much more water and earth. So the fire is like propelling him into action. It's pulling him into his passion. I have plenty of passion. I am a fire girl. And so all of this, I'm in the emerge process right now that I host and do every year. And so I'm in that process. And all of the things are about the balance of fire and water, fierce grace. And my animal for the year is, my animal ally is the deer. So it's about gentleness and gentle strength. And so I need to balance my fiery spirit with water and earth so that I don't burn out, but I can burn bright. Noah is the opposite. Like it's calling him forth into things that he's been stuck with or he's been procrastinating on. So just kind of sensing for you these elements that I'm talking about. And if you want to learn more about these things, just, Google, the 5 elements or I'll put a link to a really good, description about all of this on my on the show notes for you all too, or at least on my website. Okay, so we got the fire horse, we got the wheel of fortune. I'm going to say a little bit more about the wheel of fortune here, but first I want to just also say the third part of this energy. Just take a breath. Just close your eyes for a moment, and I'm going to invite you to tune in to your human self. Sometimes in my leadership cohorts, we call it our inner field with a small f. And it's your human self. And you get to be your human self in this. So your fear is welcome, your doubt is welcome, your worries are welcome, but so are your gifts and your superpowers and your voice and your expression. So we always like to say, don't hide the fear, don't hide the shame, don't hide the worry, because it'll just come out sideways. But also don't build a house there or set up a condo or a tent and live there all year. In you also have these gifts, these powers that in your body, as we're doing this right now, as a full-bodied meditation, feeling into your human self, you also have, like Wonder Woman was part human. I mean, she lived ever. She lived a long time, but she was human too. And so you're human too. And you have these gifts, and we're I almost feel like we have this time capsule inside of us that's just waiting to go off at certain times in our life. And if we're paying attention, eyes wide open, ears attuned, body grounded and centered, rooting into what's real and what's resonant, then those time capsules go off, and then you live right in time with your purpose and your curriculum and your design, but you can miss it. You can miss it and push it down, and then it comes back 10 years later. And I would say you can't miss your destiny, but you can take some really long detours, and or you actually kind of can not meet the moment of your own evolution, and then depending from a karma perspective, you'll just come back and get the same lessons again. So in this moment, just sensing into that human part and knowing that part, and we're just going to stay in this visualization for a moment. We are here in 2026 moving towards 2027. And where it's a fire horse, the wheel of fortune is shifting. That means that there's movement. So we want to be moving through this. And whether you want to use the metaphor of the butterfly or one that's really present for 2027 is the dragonfly. So the difference between the dragonfly and the butterfly, and I think they're both relevant depending on kind of where you're at in your evolution. The dragonfly swims around in water, doesn't know it's a dragonfly because it's not a dragonfly yet. So its sink of water is consciousness. So think about this yourself. You've been swimming around in a certain kind of consciousness, and you're ready to elevate and liberate yourself from what doesn't allow you to be truly free. And in the dragonfly, connected to the 55th gene key, 55th I Ching, is moving from victim and disempowerment to freedom. And so the dragonfly climbs onto a reed, connects to a reed, and it literally climbs up a reed. It elevates, and then it stops. It drops its exoskeleton. It molts. Its wings pop out, and it stands there to let the wings dry before it flies off. So what exoskeleton might you be in the process of dropping? What consciousness might you be in the process of elevating? If you're truly evolving and expanding and growing, we never stop. So it's not like you have maybe this. You've likely had multiple molts in your life. Ones that felt more like a butterfly, right? So the butterfly was fascinating, and I think our collective culture is a butterfly. I feel like a dragonfly. I'm not sure where you feel. Whatever. There's no judgment. None's better than the other. But the butterfly, what's fascinating is that, so it's a caterpillar, right? It literally changes. So it goes caterpillar, goes into the cocoon, and then it has imaginal cells within it that need to like awaken in order for the caterpillar to turn into a butterfly. But what happens is those imaginal cells fight, or those old cells fight the imaginal cells. Because if the imaginal cells take over, the old cells, the old body, the caterpillar dies. But what the caterpillar doesn't know, because it only knows what it can see and what it's known before, and it's munching along as like a little cat. It can't fly. It's like a ground being. Like there's no flying caterpillars, you all, right? So the system, our own system, or like if you look at our collective system that's happening on the planet right now, it's like the imaginal cells seemed like they were getting bigger, and we were spreading and like lightening up, and then like. It's like they're attacking those imaginal cells. So this attacking on wokeness and diversity and, people of different colors and all of that attacking, that is the old cells attacking the imaginal cells because they were starting to multiply to such a degree, the metamorphosis was going to happen. And this happens in system change. It's documented. If you've never read the book, The Cultural Co-Creatives, written 20 years ago, I highly recommend getting that book. It explains so much and some really amazing models in there from Irvin Laszlo. That is just, it explains so much. But think about that at the macro level. And then if the imaginal cells are allowed the space to take over, the caterpillar doesn't really die. Everyone gets to go be a butterfly. And so just asking yourself, just take a pause, like which of those metaphors could really help you? give you some context for how you as an individual, the micro, the small f, your small field is transforming, and which of that might help you with the bigger field, the big F, we're calling it. So as we go through this as co-creators, we're always looking at the macro and the micro. We're always looking at the small field and the big field, because when you can see the patterns between the two, it creates a level of peace, because it helps you see how if I can focus on what I can influence, which you have 100% control over your own body, mind, heart, and spirit. Most of us do. Not all of us, but most of us do. And then that's just one, right? That's the one. Then the two is you and your relationships. How you show up, how you interact. What's the energy? Where's the shadow? Where are the blind spots? And that can be professional and personal. And then that also is how you show up as a leader in the systems that you influence and take part in. So whether that's your team system, your family system, your community systems, your organizational systems, the industry that you work in, you are a part of that. And one primary teaching, and then if you've never heard this, or if you've heard it before, but you haven't written it down and it's like not in your fascia, is your presence is enough. Your presence, we always think we have to do something, and we do. But our presence comes before productivity. Being comes before doing. And if you can dial in your presence to be centered, to be light, to be grounded, oh my God, like the powerful instrument you can be for love and compassion, and finding a way to have that fierce grace. If all of us did that, and we did our own internal part to elevate, showed up in our relationships to individuals and to small groups or communities, those frickin' imaginal cells, man, and they would be like, woo, butterfly coming. And there'd be like the dragonflies, like, ooh, I'm out of the water, elevating consciousness. Like, I'm not kidding, right? So, hold on, we're about halfway through. Let's take a sip. Okay, let me read you this short passage about the Wheel of Fortune. There's so much to say about this. This will be one last part of the kind of the first part of it's getting us oriented. Before we go on to the triangle of transformation, I felt like this was important. So you can close your eyes. It's kind of our little halftime show here. Close your eyes and listen. Or imagine an image that has like a hand with a top on it. And it's a top that's turning, and there's a center to the top, and then there's the wheel around it that's turning. And this is key 10, the Wheel of Fortune. And this reading comes from the Tarot of Spirit by Pamela Eakins, which is an oracle I've worked with for 20 years, and I highly recommend. So Pamela Eakins, this is her transmission. Your fate is changing, rising or falling. Stay balanced through these changes. You are responsible for your own state. Whatever you are without is a manifestation of your desire to understand your own inner spirit. The ultimate goal is to stay balanced in heart, mind, spirit, and body through all the upward and downward movements of life. In times of sadness, retain your equilibrium. In times of joy, retain your equilibrium also. So underline that, retain your equilibrium as a centering orientation point as we go into this next cycle. Okay, a couple more parts here. The Wheel of Fortune turns. It is the wheel of karma. It is the wheel of chance. It is the wheel of return. It is the wheel of consciousness. It's a game of mastery over that which falls out, over that which is given, and that which is taken away, that which is created, and that which dissolves. The wheel tends of the endless rotation of day and night. The earth, the skies, the seasons, the years, and the rise and fall of humanity through the endless cycling of birth, fortune, and death. The game of life symbolized by the turning wheel of fortune, like a game of poker or even a spread of the tarot, involves choice just as it involves happenstance. You may not be in control of all the cards you are dealt, but you do choose how you will react. You judge, you hold on to that which seems beneficial, you discard that which appears extraneous. You learn to be clever. You learn to be creative. As your lot is cast in the wheel of fortune, you become familiar with your strengths and weaknesses. You perceive your limits, the lines you cross willingly, those which you will not cross. You explore the matter of choice. You explore the matter of freedom. You consider the question of free will versus destiny. You imagine that you may choose the games in which you participate. Now, as I read these last two paragraphs, remember, think about this and take this in both as the micro and the macro, and knowing that we are going through collectively and individually a transformation. That's not a choice, it's happening. How we go through it, which is why I use the word sacred transformation and the triangle of transformation, we do have choice over. And whenever we put the word sacred in front of anything, sacred means devoted to wholeness, without violence to self or others, with respect. So transformation, whether you want to be a butterfly, a dragonfly, or some other metaphor, is transformation, change, catalyzing that happens with respect to self and others without violence. We can't control everything. We can't control the whole meta, but we can influence so much more than we know. We are the culture shapers. We are the culture creators. We are the cultural creatives. And so this wheel of fortune, it's happening. We are turning. You cannot stop the turn. But we do have a choice of how we show up in the turn and what we see. Eyes wide open, ears attuned, body grounded, rooted into what is real and resonant. So I'm going to read these last two parts. Think of this, both your own personal and also the macro. Your fortune is changing. The wheel of your life is turning at an accelerated rate. Your fortune is rising or falling. You're gaining and losing. This process and the emotional experience that accompanies it is not new to you. All your life, you've undergone such occurrences. You've gained, you've lost, you've known sources and success of happiness. You've known failure and remorse. You've been accepted and rejected. You've accepted and rejected. You have achieved and rejoiced, and you have failed and cried. And in realizing your goals, you have experienced the degree to which you create the circumstances of your achievement. You see, creating reality is an intricate and paradoxical process. We learn that in general, if we apply ourselves, we can accomplish a task. We can break down barriers which at first seem insurmountable. If we push hard enough at the walls around us, they begin to miraculously fall away. We find we can go places we never thought possible. We can create our world in our own image. And we are the visionaries. Just adjusting my body here. Just letting all that land. Because it gives us some context. And I think it's important to say that as we go into this cycle, even though I wish everyone was embracing sacred transformation. That is not the case. And so some things that I want to just say that we should expect so that we can then use this triangle of transformation, and you can use it to support you as an orientator. Here's some things. And one of the things I really believe and practice, true leaders, like we expect empowered co-creators, we expect the interference. We're prepared for it. So we name it. So here's some, I just wrote down, what are some of the interferences that are going to likely come up in the field with a big F, and also more importantly in our small f's, so that we can do something with this. So if you notice these as you're going through this year, these would be indicators for you to, as the world is speeding up or you're speeding up, to take a breath and take a beat. Fear in the form of worry or anxiety. Feelings of disempowerment. Noticing that you've been distracted, that you're in distraction, or your energy is being fragmented. So one of the things that can happen and is happening is systems, technology, sources of information will steal your energy. And you can let them, or you can be aware that your energy and your life force is one of the most valuable resources on the planet you have. And if you just take a minute to look at like the current media culture and what happens with everyone talking about certain people and certain things, it feeds the beast. And there's a difference between being awake and aware, eyes wide open, ears tuned in, body grounded and centered in my breath, rooted into what is real and resonant. And when we're there, we can feel the lies, we can see what's real. But when people like are tuned in, for example, to the news channels 24/7, they lose their autonomy and their sovereignty, because now their instrument is tuned into that vibrational frequency. So their frequency gets locked into that channel, and it seems normal. It overrides their human system, and oftentimes is connected to trauma, drama, or that part of the caterpillar that doesn't want to change. It's kind of like the dragonfly in water. It doesn't even know it's in. I always say that culture is like the water you swim in or the air you breathe. You can't even see it or know you're into it until you're out. And think of a time in your life where you were maybe working in a place, or your family system, where you were not conscious of the air you were breathing and the water you were in. You might have defended things to the end of time, but now you crawl out of that reed. Your imaginal cells took over. You grew. You evolved. You could see things from a different perspective. So just be real aware of that energy getting distracted or fragmented. Also, be the human self and your higher self at the same time. Let your human self have the feels. And we need to also then be like, okay, I've had my feels. Now I need to climb up onto that reed, and I need to see and tune into my higher self. However you do that. And just being aware of both of those things happening. So that is some of the interference. We could spend the whole day talking about interference, but I wanted to give you some of those and give you that word, right? So I gave you orientation. Interference is another one. In noticing when it's happening so that you can take action to get yourself harmonized. All right. You ready to make it practical? I mean, this all is very practical. Let me take a sip. I have my blue cup for equanimity. That was the other one. If you missed that in the Wheel of Fortune, kind of the teaching of the Wheel of Fortune, it relates to the Wheel of Karma and how the Wheel of Karma is always spinning. So like what we're seeing right now in the meta, and this goes to the first part of the sacred transformation, is the releasing and the healing of the past. So think of the triangle of transformation like a triangle and in a circle. And there's 3 parts that we're experiencing individually right now, and this has been happening for years, decades. And we're also experiencing it collectively. And part of the reason this is so hard is all three are happening at the same time. And I would imagine, I don't know how long this is going to last, that we're all three are happening at the same time. Maybe this is how it always is, but it's like all three are like, whoa, are needed. And I'll just tell you what those three are, and then we'll go deeper into each one. And then I have an inquiry and some thoughts so that you can kind of tune into this for yourself. So triangle, bottom left-hand corner. And I also have a video that I did on this back in 2018, 19. I will put a link to that on my blog post as well for you all. Release and heal the past. So you have to release and heal the past, the drama, the trauma, the disappointments, the failures, all of those old caterpillar cells. Go across on the bottom of the triangle. Stabilize in the now. So if we're releasing all and healing the past, the grief, the anger, all of the things that need to come up, right? And so a lot of that stuff it's the shadow in our face. It's our blind spots, the things that are in the subconscious that we don't want to look at. The water of the dragonfly is the subconscious, the cocoon. I'm literally in a hanged state. I am in the subconscious. But we also have to stabilize in the now. And because otherwise the healing and the releasing and all of that drama and the trauma and the shadows and the blind spots and the catalyzing, kind of like I said, we are in a catalyst, and a catalyst will either feel like it's happening to you, which is where you become disempowered, or you have to kind of elevate and we got to put our big girl boy panties on, or pantaloons on, and be like, oh, this catalyst is happening through me. And that is hard to swallow, especially when it's involving illness or death or money or the things that hit the base level of our root. And or we see it collectively of like, how could it be that we live in a world currently, but have been living in a world, well, for a long time where people are killed, kidnapped, taken away, didn't have social media and cameras to showcase it, didn't have it happening as publicly in America. But it's been happening on this planet for a long time, like thousands of years. And we are at a crux point that this is not just like, I did not make this up. This is, my gift in part to help us be oriented so that we can find insight and allow the light to bring us forward. As I look, I'm tuned into these different wisdom lineages, and then I pull it together based on the common themes and then translate it and share it here so then you can decide what you want to do with it. This is not me telling you how to think, how to see. I'm simply like putting some things out for us to look at and say, what about this resonates? What about this doesn't? Where and how can this help me expand our perspective, expand possibility, and find the power we have within as co-creators who I believe with every part of my body and being are here to be the culture shapers, the one who are pioneers to do things differently. And no one may ever know how you pioneered, even if it's just within your family system. That's enough. Even if it's you raised one good human and created an environment in which that human could know that they are loved and honored and cherished, even if they rebel as teenagers. Like there's so many ways that the silent heroes, and Martin Luther King talked about that in his acceptance of the Nobel Peace Prize. Like this is how you know there's a leader that you want in a position of power. They're humble. They have a good balance of humility and dignity. That's a power spectrum. And when humility and dignity come together, it creates a field of honor. When you look at people who are in positions currently across the world, whether they're in their organizational heads or their government heads, ask yourself, does this person embody humility and dignity? And if they don't, how did they get into this position? And not from a place of like anger about it, but a place of like grounded, rooted, fierce grace. Because if we get outraged, if we get irate in a way that's like moments of outrage, okay, moments of irateness, okay, fire is meant to have a burst. But if you stay in that state, it will burn your shit up. But if you also turn a blind eye and you get all bewildered by all of the, I just look at my email and I'm just like, what is going on in this freaking phone? Like, I feel like email has become another social media. It's just scroll, scroll, scroll. Like, there's just so much coming through. That's not okay either, because that's just getting caught in the wind. We actually need your fire. We need your passion. We need your spirit. We need your light. And so one of the portals through this time is we release and heal the past, both for ourselves, but also for the collective. And this is a hard one. This came through in my yearly wisdom reading. It was so clear. And I was like, and I'm not going to go totally deep in this because I'm in a deeper contemplation that I've been in for over a year. And I haven't talked to you all a lot about it. I've talked a little bit about the some of the myths of the Fisher King and the Holy Grail and different things. And I will come back around to that at some point. But what is important for right now is that understanding opens the field of compassion. Understanding is one of the 8 facets of compassion. And compassion isn't condoning. But it is, if we can understand how we got here, what's happening. And sometimes it's a mystical understanding. Sometimes that's why the higher self is important. Like, I see things through my mystical eyes, our wise eyes, that if you're not looking at the subtle realms, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see the parallels between Harry Potter and Star Wars in the current reality, which those are completely tied into archetypes, which we've talked about, right? Why we're doing this, why I'm bringing forth the feminine leadership archetypes, next one coming soon, is because it gives us a way to respond in the field from an archetypal energy, because archetypes don't care about humanity. It's a whole other game. But you can't see that with like your human eyes. Your human eyes just sees the third dimension. And to just only live in that, I mean, you would just go mad because the suffering is so intense. But that's the archetypal game that's been being played for thousands of years, of people taking whatever they wanted. It's the combination, I call it, it's like a cocktail, like a martini. And it's the cocktail of greed, arrogance, ignorance, with an olive in it that is loyalty and nepotism, and people being put in positions of power based on loyalty, nepotism, or just like in the monarchy, you just happen to be born in this lineage, that thing in places that they don't deserve, nor do they have the credentials to actually be a leader or be charged with what they're charged with a lime of indifference. I don't know if martinis have limes. Do martinis have limes? Oh, salt, the salt, okay? The salt, they have like limes and martinis. That doesn't sound so good with an olive. I only had 2 martinis in my whole life, you all, and like it knocked me on my butt. This was back in like the early 90s when I worked in advertising, and there was still some Mad Men stuff going on. And there was a lunch, and I had a martini because everyone else was having martinis, and I was like, I slept under my desk for hours after that, and that's when I realized I was not a martini or a margarita drinker. Got to have some lightness, you all, or we're not going to make it. So just think about that, right? It's like this cocktail of ignorance plus arrogance plus greed with the nepotism or like the over loyalty thing that comes because you're born in a certain place or know a certain person, with the salt of indifference. All you got to do is watch It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas Carol. These are timed tales, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago of, Mr. Potter never gets better. It's that just George Bailey and the people of Bedford Falls, they don't give up. They rally around. Same thing in Star Wars, last Star Wars. It's the people who show up, not just one person, not just one Jedi. It's the people. So that's where we're at in this healing and releasing the past, is we have to awaken the human heart. That includes you and me. Like, our hearts need to open even more. That's what I've been doing. Why I've been a little more, I'm kind of in a little slower pace right now with the podcast. And I was doing power pauses for teams and for all of you and all of that as well. But just that I was doing some deep work with the Gene Keys in December, and then Noah and I just finished a cleanse. It ends up being about a 20-day Ayurvedic cleanse, because I just could feel the stuff from last year just in my body. It's like I could see, it was almost like the skin of a garbanzo bean, how it's like that clear. I could feel it like floating around in my body. And I was like, I gotta get this stuff out. And so I've been on a cleanse, and I've been very internal. And I have to honor that, and you get to honor that too. That's the feminine leading and the masculine supporting. That's creativity leading and intuition leading, the feeling, the sensing before we feel like we have to say something. In this era of crazy content and overload, I would encourage all of us to say less, but say more of what matters. And that will have a lot more resonance in the field. More about that when we get to our next archetype. All right. I think, so that's the stabilize the now. The third part is leading and creating the way for the new. So we have to be creating, that's the top of the triangle. We have to be creating the new while we're releasing and healing the past and stabilizing in the now. And if you can just imagine, like, take your body and put one foot on the left and like, okay, I'm creating and releasing the past, and just think about that for yourself. Like, what is that tail, that root that you're releasing? What's calling for your heart to open and awaken? What are some of the resentments or the judgments or the protections or the toxic habits that you've had that, in order to evolve, sometimes as they call it, it's like the new human that is more compassionate, that we're rooted in compassion, in wholeness and love, instead of all this deep trauma and drama that's been happening for thousands of years, the domination, the indifference, the greed, the ignorance, the arrogance, all of those things. So we can't do everything for all of that, but we can do it in our own self. So just take a moment and just pick one thing you already know that is part of the exoskeleton that you're releasing, or the old cells. It could be a habit. It could be a resentment you've been carrying, something you haven't forgiven. Or just something that you want to really alchemize, and work with this year. Be the fear of rejection. And even if nothing comes, it's all good. Maybe I'll bring something forward on Self-Love Day. We'll see. One thing that you can do if you don't have anything, just to help you all out, is we're doing this also in the Emerge process, but we pause in February and January of each year and say, okay, where am I over? Where's one of the 13 over-giving imprints that's running in me? And this could be a really simple and easeful, but super profound, because one of the ways that we create a society in which some people give more and give more and give more, and others take, or a society in which the caregivers and the teachers get paid way less than like the rock stars and the CEO stars and the superstars. Like, our value system is so screwed up is because of this over-giving, under-receiving balance. So if you have overwhelmed and over it, I would encourage you to go to section 3 and read about giving and receiving, and then you can take the quiz in there about which of the 13 over-giving imprints are running in you, or you could go to the quiz online, which is amiOvergiving.com. I'll put it in the show notes too. And then choose that over, whichever one comes up highest, and then work with that. Because that you might not be able to do anything about Mr. Potter, or people basically putting billions of dollars in our government to fund all kinds of nefarious things and overfund them, and then take away things like help subsidies in America, that this is happening. It's the same thing, giving corporate breaks on taxes and then taking away the needs of society. I mean, that's the deal. So you want to do something about that? Shift the over giving and under receiving in yourself, choose an over giving pattern, and imprint and change it and elevate it. Plus, it'll make your life so much more better, and it will help you open up your heart and see that imprint. So releasing and healing the past. And then the practice that I would offer you for this one is understanding. Understanding isn't condoning. So in any situation for self of understanding and or the system, it's like, what would make a person, what would make a good person do that? We're all born pure spirits. We're all born whole love. And then things happen here. And yeah, people make choices. It's not that they're not accountable. People need to be accountable. And that's another podcast to talk about as we start looking at reimagining leadership and really talking about what leadership is in our culture going forward. But everyone was a small, innocent human at one time. So that's the practice for releasing and healing the past. And I'll just say one other part about that is that when Noah and I first moved to San Francisco when we were in our early 30s, we were gifted to be able to have one of our teachers was a Lakota chief. And one of his teachings and sharings was, and this was particular to America, but I think it's happened on most continents, is that until it's acknowledged that the blood that was shed here and what was stolen, nothing can actually really heal. And that hasn't happened, as far as I can see, across the United States of America. So the United States of America is having its own reckoning for how this, the shadow parts of how this country was founded, including how many people made a lot of money based on slavery and the land that was just taken without regard to what the land was and how the native peoples lived. Not that they were perfect, but there's a difference between stewardship and ownership and a lot of things. In other countries, I have noticed, not all, but many countries have done such a better job than America in doing this. And so I think America is having its reckoning. And I just keep praying, my prayer is, may the human heart awaken swiftly, the least amount of suffering as possible. And every time I see something that is so disturbing, that is my prayer that I just drop into. And prayer is a very, very powerful practice. It changes the frequency of the field. It's not about praying to some white man God. It is something every one of us has, and it changes frequency. So don't discount your power of prayer. You can't see it. It's invisible. But even that prayer held, knowing that we're in the goo and knowing that more and more people are coming out of the water to see what's happening, the quickening can happen faster. So that brings us to the second part. What do you, my love, my dear, my fellow co-creator, my fellow agent of harmonic defiance, what do you need to stay stable in the now? In this next cycle, let's just do this next cycle. What do you need to stabilize in the now? And I am gonna bring out my old badge or my old moniker, my old role of the queen of self-love, the founder of the self-love movement. I retired my jersey from that, and but that still informs so much of my work. But it is really about self-advocacy here, and it is about self-love. It's like, okay, if this is my part, if I'm going to say yes, I'm going to do my part to release and heal the past, to be eyes wide open, ears attuned, body grounded, centered in my breath and my being, rooted into what's real and resonant. I desire, and I require some things that are going to help me be stable, because I'm a human being. right? You're a human being. Like, we don't have, like, there's not like someone's going to, I mean, it could happen. I've seen this happen. People are going to leave money at our door and be like, hey, now you can pay your mortgage. Now you can pay your rent. But we can be in co-creation with, call it the universe, life, the field, in general. But you have to name it in order to claim it when it comes to what you need to receive. So this is the practice, and I want to encourage you to do this. I'll give it to you here. I'm not gonna, let me just give it to you, okay? Here it is. It's a very simple practice. What do I need? What do I desire? And what do I require? So this is a proactive practice. Look ahead into this next cycle. This is a whole part of the Emerge process that we do every year. And it's like, okay, if I'm signing up for this, then what do I need? What do I desire? And what do I require? And if you ask those three inquiries you'll get different answers. So let's just take, and what was so awesome is every year, we just did this like a week ago, we did all the people participating in Emerge said what they required, and then we made a poem out of it, and it's posted on the Feminine Wisdom Cafe. So if you do go over there, you'll see it on the main feed. But just take a moment, and I'll get you started on this. So again, taking a breath, taking a beat, slowing it down, and tuning in. That second part of the triangle on the bottom, stabilizing in the now. Stabilizing in this next cycle. What do you need? Do you need, dear one? And just allowing one or two things to come up, and you don't have to explain it. You don't have to justify it. You just get to say, I actually need this. And then shifting over to, what do you desire? That need is part of what keeps you stable. The desire opens your heart. It's not just about gritting your teeth and grasping on and pushing through and sacrificing yourself and being some kind of martyr savior. Desire creates joy, and joy is food for the soul and the spirit. So as you feel into and look into this next year cycle, what do you desire? And maybe even just opening up your arms and shifting your body to let that heart be open. Like, this is a somatic thing. It could be cupcakes every day. It could be, for me, is to spend time with people I adore and places I love and spaces I love to explore. That can be just for you, those desires. Because if you're vibrating higher, if you're feeling stable, then you will be able to, by just the nature, you'll be able to be your most bright, centered self. Same thing with need. It's like, actually, like for me, I need to have the financial flow, resources, and reserves just coming to me, just happening as I put my work into the world and I show up. Like, it just needs to happen so that I can spend my time and energy showing up as a presence for the leaders and the teams that I coach and I guide and that I advise, so that I can do all of the practices, including 15 or 16 or 20-day cleanses and deeper dives into things like the gene keys, like that. Like, this presence doesn't just happen. Like, there's a devotion to my practices that allow that to happen. I need that financial part taken care of. What's that need and desire for you? And then the last one is, I require. And I love this one because it reminds me of the cover of Overwhelmed and Over It. And there's a line under Over It. We didn't put an exclamation point on it because it's not like a bratty, it's like a line in the sand, like, I require this. And there is a wisdom teaching that says sometimes you have to get feisty with the universe. You have to get feisty and say, like, and because they're like, well, she could probably, or they could probably do without it. And you're like, oh yeah, no, I require this. It's like a job requirement. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a Rolls Royce. It's not, a 4-bedroom house. It's not 5 houses. I'll give you a couple things here that might. This is from the Feminine Wisdom Way collective poem. It's a merger, so I'll read a couple of these. These are from actual women. I require spaciousness, beautiful space to fill my cup first every morning. Calm energy, quiet time, space to connect with spirit. I require love, safety, kindness, resilience, plentiful moments of joy and ease. I require sunshine, direction, inspiration, daily movement, freedom to schedule and plan, systems that support my level of next level of growth, skillful and experimental playtime. I require autonomy. I require catalytic connections, respect for boundaries, healthy emotional support, consistent care provider so I can do what I want to do, people in my world who get me. I require joy, magic, beauty, cozy, soft delight. I require peace, trust in the divine, calmness, dance, nature, for things to just come to me. I require slowing down, a good bed, a good night's sleep every night. Time for me where I don't have to do anything for anyone else. I require to be cherished, loved, valued, prioritized. I require deep trust, appreciation, connection. I require the presence of beauty, joy, laughter, love, validation, pleasure, positive results, feeling, and clarity. I require sacred space, time in nature, exercise, beautiful lingerie I can wear every day, love and connection. I require freedom of choice, consistent, collaborative, and practical support, evidence of humans doing loving, compassionate things for each other every day. So I encourage you to write down your needs, desires, and requires. And then we're not going to go deep into this, but make sure that you have your in the moment restabilizers for when you get the wobbles and triggers, for all the ways I've talked about many different things going on throughout this. I think one that I might just add in that would help to stabilize in the now, when you get triggered, when you get wobbled, the practice would be to conversate, to connect and conversate, not isolate or be irate, not isolate and irate. And so Noah just had to do this today. He was irate and outraged. And I said, you need to call some of your mankind friends. And so he did. He connected, he conversated instead of isolating and irating, if I make irating a verb. So connect and conversate when the wobbles happen. It's one of my biggest practices so that we don't get stuck in bewilderment. All right, last one here. We're just going to touch on this one because there's so much to say about this piece, and it's very much connected to what I call next phase on purpose, which is about embracing your power as a co-creator to design and live into reality the next phase of your career and your work in the world, your life design, and what you need and desire for your well-being foundation and the life that you live, and also your leadership impact. And we'll dive more into this. It's a focus for me this spring. I'm also going to be opening up spots for established and emerging leaders who really want to explore this and gain clarity and orientation on what's at the center of their work in the world, their well-being foundation, and their leadership impact, because it becomes an orientation point for you. I know what is at the center of my well-being, which is the longevity of my well-being and savoring my life in the now, which is why I do 20-day Ayurveda cleanses twice a year. It's my form of healthcare. I know what's at the center of my work in the world, which is to train and guide, like a Jedi, the emerging and established leaders for the next era. That includes bringing the feminine back into leadership. It includes teaching and illuminating the burnout matrix so that we actually create sustainable success, and in teaching how to actually co-create and bring sustainable success into the world. And this is what I do with leaders and teams, the feminine wisdom way. Like, it's my life's work. It's what we're here for right now. And so that helps me say yes and no to what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. And why I can do things like grow the work with young girls and women that we call Wiser, that we're piloting right now in Guatemala with a group of 10 girls in a Montessori school, and building a set of journals that will come out sometime soon. We'll see how that comes out and manifests, but it doesn't overtake everything. It's a sprout that I put energy to, while my main livelihood and how I do my work is working with leaders and systems and their teams. And next phase on purpose of helping, the Jedis, all of us, get aligned to our part and purpose. So more on that. And if you are interested in that, do go over to my website, and you can find that in the Work With Me section, or it's also usually on my my homepage, because I am looking for connecting to the people who would love support to create a container so that in the next year or 2 or 3, they're really living into that. But for now, what I want to leave us all with is leading the way for creating the new. Where is that happening for you? And we'll just have about another 5 minutes here, you all. I know this is a longer podcast, but as you know, I have to, sometimes I've done these in 2 podcasts, and I decided you can all just pause wherever you want to and come back. But so don't leave. It's only about 5 more minutes here. So here's the deal. I'm leading the way for creating the new. You have to be creating the new. You can't just be releasing and healing the past and stabilizing in the now, because your spirit will die and you won't be actually in that creative. The creative energy is what moves you. It moves you forward. It's you riding next to that fire horse. It's you on the wheel of fortune, like really like using your tools. Like, I am a co-creator. And so you have to have that top point going too. But the hard part about it is that it is, and it does require us to step into the unknown. And this is why, when I'm working with people, especially if they have jobs already, I say, like, this is your transition job, or we call it transition plus, if they're actually learning and growing, but they know it's not their forever place. I'm like, don't cut down your tree. Don't cut off your financial flow. We'll just pull back, instead of giving 120%, we go to 80%, which is most likely most people's 100%, and so you do that there, and then we're going to explore this leading the way for creating the new. So you have to kind of be doing both at the same time, and there's a lot of unknown right now. I mean, one of my messages for the year, again, is stepping into the unknown. But the question I would ask you, the inquiry I would give you is, what do you already know about your part into this next cycle? And you could think about it in this next year, just in this next year, what's your part and what's not your part? Like, that's a very powerful question to ask yourself. What is my part? Write this down. What's not my part? Sometimes what's not your part, and writing that out, tells you more than anything. Because what will start to happen is you'll start to see other people taking up that part. And then you can choose to join in on it and be a participant versus a leader or a creator in it, and just give your energy to it. Like Noah and I'm very much about planet Earth and trees. I love trees. And there's a university here who I think the chancellor is actually the pink lady from Harry Potter, like the one who's like, what made Harry Potter's like right in his blood. She seems like her. And they want to cut down this like 70 acres of trees. That's one of the last forests in the city, to basically build a soccer field. So Noah and I go to their events, and then I buy their sweatshirts, and I share it with my friends who live here. I believe I walk in that forest, and I like love on it when I'm in it. That's my part. It's not my part to call the people. It's not my part to like know what to do. Because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Just tell me where to go, and I'll show up. So we've gone to county board meetings. We just went to they had a silent auction on Friday at a cider place. I don't even drink cider, but I still went. And it was like that. So if you know it's not your part, but it'll help you be open to more things that you could give your energy to without having to like, that's your livelihood or that's your part. But then what is your part? And if you don't know what your longer part is, like how I can name mine that way, it's because this is my part. Like I create these orientation tools that I teach either one-on-one or in groups or in cohorts. So then there's language and there's visuals, and now you have a compass that probably lasts you, a decade or two. So, and I just want to say about this one, this is where we're going to end, is that there is a longer game to all of this. If we go back to you can't miss your design. You could be blind to it. You could say no and run away from it. It'll come back again, but maybe not for another 10 years. So this is the fire horse year, you all. So, I would encourage you to open up your heart and spirit on your own horse. Like, what kind of horse do you want to ride? Is it a horse with wings? I was talking to a client. I'm like, I think yours is Pegasus. I think you have, because she used to be so up in the air and now she's very grounded. So I think yours is like a Pegasus. And like for me, mine feels like a black or a brown and tan horse and I just like feel like my native spirit on her just like one. And I love the white for the purity and it's like an amber color, like the brown, that just feels like I have a piece of carnelian heart. It's like my carnelian heart. And so consider that, like, what's the horse that you're going to ride? Don't get on the fire horse. And here's the wisdom that we're going to end in. This leading the way and creating for the new. Yes, know you're stepping into the unknown. Orient yourself by what is my part and what is not my part, and then consider what support you need. I don't care if it's me or someone else, but just make sure you have support and containers that are going to help you bring that into fruition in alignment to your design and keep you focused and centered. And I'm going to end us today with the wisdom for this year. So every year, in the Feminine Wisdom Collective, we choose an oracle card from a deck called Sacred Rebels by Elena Fairchild to guide us as co-creators. It's the best oracle I know of working with bringing your work into the world in a sustainable way. And think sacred, here it goes, Sacred Rebels again, right? So this is where it's rebelling against what does not work, isn't creating harmony, isn't right, in a way that creates wholeness, right? Sacred means to be devoted to wholeness without violence to self or others, with respect. So that's how we roll as sacred rebels. And we know in our hearts of hearts and in our spirits, like there's a better way to do this. And so this is the card that we pull. And then I feel like this is for all of us. I'm not going to read the whole thing or read a part of it, but here's the wisdom. Every journey starts with a single step. And there's a woman who's standing with a suitcase, and butterflies, golden butterflies, are flying out of her suitcase. So you can kind of think of the suitcase like a cocoon, and the butterflies are coming out of it. And what it's talking about, and I've noticed this ever since we pulled this card at the beginning of January, is that what's happening is things are happening one step at a time. And we take one step, and then we allow space, and then the next step appears. And then the next step appears. And then a connection appears. And so whether this is like something I've been co-creating, like a collaboration, or where I was trying to figure out and tune into where to go for my birthday and what the energy was, and where my mind was taking me versus where my body and heart were taking me, it took me about 2.5, 3 weeks to finally land in what life was trying to show me. And my guidepost was knowing, like, whenever I felt some of these feelings like unease or disempowerment or anger or distraction or fear or any parts of my ego that I know from my Enneagram, my makeup, or my human design, I paused and I backed the truck up and I waited before I acted. And it got me to a thing I couldn't even see had I not been in that process. But every day I would go to bed and I would wake up and be like, okay, what's next? And what's next? And it requires a trust. And that's how it's rolling right now. And this is where you can invite in, and the practice then is to invite grace in. To invite grace in. Grace is the 13th superpower that we work with and invite in every year. She's mysterious, she's mercurial, but the wisdom is make no move until grace goes before you, yet invite grace in every day, because she's the one who makes the crooked places straight, and she does the heavy lifting for us. But we have to be tuned in to listen. And so just knowing that you are on a journey, and this journey will draw upon what you have learned and mastered over the course of your life, so much so that you may feel as though your life experiences have prepared you just for this particular adventure. This is from the Oracle. You need to know this. You have all that you need within you. This is not a time to worry about what you're going to take with you. From within your heart, you will sense what needs to come along for the ride and what is best left behind you now. You may be surprised at exactly how much can be left behind without you feeling concerned or anxious. You will be able to travel far lighter than you ever imagined possible. To be best equipped for the journey, you will need a lightness of heart and the realization that change can be an incredible blessing, even if what you are leaving behind is something you found secure, safe, familiar, or comforting. Just as the butterfly leaves the chrysalis behind when it's time to spread its newly formed wings, so too are you, my dear, ready to leave behind what once was and embrace what is more appropriate for you at this time. And one last piece. The Oracle brings you particular guidance that the apparently small steps you are taking in an area of your life important to you right now are actually far more powerful and constructive than you realize. Sometimes we are gaining ground, but the effect is not immediately obvious. This doesn't mean that nothing is happening. It simply means that the effects of your actions are cumulative, and soon they will begin to overflow into the physical world with a positive impact that may surprise you. This Oracle brings you a message. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Your inner and outer journeys are blessed with positive energy, and all you need to do is keep going, one step at a time. So with that, my loves, okay, a little longer than 5 minutes, you know. Oh, I'm so grateful to be with you all. Thank you so much for understanding my need to be in this cadence right now as I'm right here with you, allowing the next to come into fruition while living in the now. And I'm really devoted to still creating the space for co-creators and women and men and beings choosing to experiment. What is it like to let the feminine lead and the masculine support to reimagine the way we in the world work? So thank you for continuing to tune in. Thank you for bringing us into your life. Thank you for all the ways in which you show up that are not seen or visible and the ways that are. And my one ask is for you to share this podcast and forward it with another person, and then both listen to it and share what comes up, share how you can support each other, share what you want to be witnessed. Do that conversating as we elevate. So sending you all off with much love, and I will see you soon. I know the archetype. She's been waiting in the wings. I thought she was going to be coming forward at winter solstice, but she's like, nope, not ready yet. So she'll be here very soon, and she's timed right on time for what we're going to need going forward into this next cycle. Okay, much love, everyone.